and I'll be presenting to you my STEM Fair final project PowerPoint. So I will be demonstrating 2 projects to you guys, one from sophomore year and one from senior year, which was a couple of weeks ago. These 2 projects will show my growth from sophomore year to now, and that is the ultimate takeaway that I want you guys to get from my presentation. So the first project that I want to demonstrate is the one from sophomore year. It actually uses block code, and it was my interpretation of a retro 2D ping pong game, which will be demonstrated later in the PowerPoint. Some features of this game that I added for a twist, there were changes in paddle sizes, switches in ball speeds, and even a multiplayer option. This project was done in JavaScript, but it was actually Squeak, which is a block code, which was very helpful to me at the time, as I wasn't as experienced as I was now. To continue, this game doesn't really solve any problems because it's a game, but it more so demonstrates my mastery and how well I was able to develop a project in Scratch and present it to a group and present it to a team. Some examples of coding features that were used: there were a lot of conditional statements, sprite interactions, while loops, for loops, stuff of that nature. This is just a quick presentation of the functionality of the game. As you can see, it is possible to beat the computer. The score changes, the paddles interact with the balls, everything works perfectly fine. So my second project is actually a movie review aggregator. And what that is it takes reviews that the user inputs and it gives the average of them to give a more concise rating of the movie and not a biased one from one specific or a few specific movie reviewers. This project was also written in JavaScript, and this one actually does solve a problem. The problem of subjective reviewing and human error and bias. One person may not like a certain movie, so you can't really rely on this specific person. You might need more than one person to get the actual overall average of the movie if that's your determining factor. Some coding features used in this were more advanced, like strings and doubles, stuff of that nature. This is also a quick demonstration of how this works. As you can see, the intense amount of code that was required for this project. The users asked to input information such as a movie name, the length of a movie, and several reviews from several websites, so the system can process it and do what it needs to do. As you can see, everything works fine. The math is correct. The computer does what it needs to do, and I've also completed all the tasks required for this project. To compare these 2 projects, they were similar in a lot of ways. Both of them asked me to complete a very challenging and extensive task to demonstrate my mastery of the platform. The first one being on Scratch, the second one being on Adhesive. Both of these require user input. The first one with the user actually playing the game, and the second one with the user inputting information, which are the interactive features. And there are also AI in both of these, as the computer playing against in the first game, and for the AI to actually computate and provide the information necessary for the movie project. Both of these projects also require conditional statements, loops, ifs, and while statements, typical stuff you see commonly in code. These projects were also very different. The first project, I received a lot of assistance, obviously, from the block code, but I also worked in that project with a team member. I had extensive help from my teacher, as this would be presented to a group of Verizon employees. They were two different, completely different types of projects. The first one was a game. It had a lot of visuals. There was actually music, loading screens, end screens. The second one didn't have any aesthetics. It just did what it needed to do, but required a lot more, which is why I think this one was much more difficult, as I didn't really have much help being with the new system and having a substitute teacher this year due to the extenuating circumstances. To continue, I grew a lot from the first project to the second project. As you see, I'm no longer reliant on block code and can completely complete my tasks without really any assistance or training wheels. I also learned not necessarily a new language, but the advancements of JavaScript. As you see, I use doubles, scripts, classes, stuff of that nature. And finally, the second project, actually, it required far more to complete far less. The first project had a lot of more visuals, as I previously mentioned, but the second project did not. And one would think that it wasn't worth it, but every line of code in that project has a purpose and serves a purpose. Reflecting on my coding career, some of the most important things I learned are the ability to problem solve, even outside of computer science. My thinking process and ability to handle conversation and different situations has completely changed for the better. I believe my greatest strength is my ability to work as a team. During my 4 years at Tech, I've been in a lot of teams. I've supervised teams, and I've been virtually useless to teams. And I've learned how to be contributive in every situation. My biggest area for improvement is more so focusing on completing a task rather than understanding it and being able to do it again, which is what I'm working on now. These two projects were actually the two most challenging I have completed at Tech for their own reasons. The first project because it was being presented and in front of a group and for a competition as a final, and I didn't really know what I was doing. The second project because it was my first ever project on this new platform with virtually no help. In the future, I will always continue to learn from myself, learn from others, no matter how good or bad I am at a certain thing. This concludes my presentation. Thank you all for listening.